And in the days of that reunified and revived Roman Empire, Jesus the King will come, just as the Scripture says. So it's a very unusual kingdom. By the way, as I said, this has been going on for a long time, this concept of reunification. I don't want to give you a lot of detail on this, but you know, in the year 800 AD, on Christmas Day, the Pope put the crown upon the head of Charlemagne and basically crowned him as head of the revived Roman Empire. Only it really didn't take, and it really didn't last. But they were trying to do it at that point in time. About the year 1800, a little Frenchman that had an itch right inside his lapel, you know who I'm talking about? He came along, and he tried to dominate all of Europe and reunify it again. Of course, even though he declared himself to be an emperor, it never really lasted and took. Moving forward to about the year 1900, what happened just shortly after 1900? I think you all know what happened just shortly after 1900. World War I. They didn't put a 1 on it, did they, at first? Didn't know that there was going to be a 2. For that matter, we don't know if there's not going to be a 3 or a 4. Let's hope not, but who knows? They thought it was the war to end all wars, but that concept that was established there in Europe, focused around the year 1900 on Bismarck, was indeed a version of trying to bring the Roman Empire back together again. Again and again. These guys will not quit, folks. They will not quit. You know why they won't quit, don't you? This is the Babylon plan. This is Satan's plan. It keeps coming up over and over again. I'm giving you just a few. This concept has been bubbling in a cauldron ever since it melted away to begin with. The goal, remember what the goal of it is, too. The goal of it is to establish a new world order, a one world government, to destroy all the things of God, and put right there in the crosshairs is the nation of Israel. If Israel can be destroyed, then Satan wins. It's that simple. Satan wins. Now, if you want to go backward and say, well, gee, did Nebuchadnezzar in that Babylon try to destroy the Jews? Oh, man, did they ever. They wiped them out. Only a few survived eventually to go back and start again. What about the Medo-Persians? Anybody remember the book of Esther and Haman? Wanting to destroy all the Jews. Then what happened with Greece when that empire came along? Anybody ever heard of Antiochus Epiphanes? They call him the Old Testament Antichrist. He actually did go into the temple in Jerusalem, desecrate it, declared himself the object of worship, actually put a statue in there that looked like himself. The Old Testament Antichrist. In fact, you can actually study him and learn some things about the future Antichrist. What about Rome? Did Rome persecute the Jewish people? Incredibly so, wiping them almost entirely from the face of the earth. God had other plans, however. They would be scattered and they would multiply in certain locations. Here we are almost 2,000 years later, and only about 1/2 of the Jews that live in this world are back in that nation that was reestablished. Still about half are out here. Well, gee, half of them are in LA, New York, and Miami. It's incredible. But there's a move, of course, to return to that land. Well, the plan has been simple. World dominion, false religion, persecution, especially of Jewish people, globalism, new world order. The same thing that started back with Nimrod and the original Babylon, if you will, has been going ever since. And it focuses really big on these 4 kingdoms, and especially this last one. Bismarck, 1900 I mentioned. What happened a few years later, about 1940-ish, actually back in the 30s? Bismarck, of course, failed. World War I, Germany was defeated. By the way, do you know what the name of Germany was then? Well, they had a lot. You give me Deutschland and Prussia, and you could give me all those names for the various locations. But they had another all-encompassing name. It was known as the Holy Roman Empire. Did you know that? I mean, they were just very blatant about it. Hitler came along, of course, in the 30s and into the 40s, where World War II took place. And he called that the Third Reich, didn't he? Remember the Third Reich? Do you happen to know what the First and Second Reich were? Historians kind of went backward and named them. The guys who were in those Reichs didn't name them as 1 and 2. But they went back later on and they said Charlemagne was really Reich number 1. Okay? And then Reich number 2 was Bismarck and that Holy Roman Empire. And then Hitler came along and he called it the Third Reich, seeking to reestablish the unification of Europe under his power. And does anybody doubt, by the way, that he was an Antichrist? And what was one of his main ambitions, beyond just unifying Europe and taking over the rest of the world? Was it not to wipe out the Jews? You see, the plan is the same, the same, the same. So there's nothing new under the sun regarding these plans. Can we learn anything about the future by looking at those things in the past? Yes, we can. It's the same. Look for globalism, one-worldism. Look for a religious faction to give traction to the whole thing. Look at a oneness, a New World Order-ness. Look for a persecution of Israel-ness in the whole thing. Of course, these things are always submerged under the surface, making it hard for us to see and identify. But these are things you can expect, things that are actually happening even as we speak. Turn to Daniel chapter 7. In Daniel chapter 7, it's not King Nebuchadnezzar that has a dream, it's Daniel that has a dream. In verse 2 of 7, Daniel spake and said, I saw in my vision by night a dream, and behold, the 4 winds of the heavens strove upon the great sea, and 4 great beasts or creatures came from the sea, diverse one from another. So he sees these monster things come up out of the sea. I guess the Mediterranean Sea would be what he would be familiar with. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted up from the earth and made stand upon feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it. And behold, another beast, a second, like to a bear, and it raised up itself on one side, and it had 3 ribs in the mouth of it, between the teeth of it. And they said unto it, Arise, devour much flesh. After this I beheld, and lo, another, like a leopard, which had upon the back of it 4 wings of a fowl. The beast had also 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. It devoured and brake in pieces, and stamped the residue with the feet of it, and it was diverse from all the beasts that went before it, and it had 10 horns. I considered the horns, and behold, there came up among them another little horn, before whom there were 3 of the first horns plucked up by the roots. And behold, in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking great things. And I beheld till the thrones were cast down, and the Ancient of Days did sit, whose garment was white as snow, and the hair of his head like the pure wool. His throne was like the fiery flame, and his wheels as burning fire. A fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands and thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. I beheld, then because of the voice of the great words which the horn spake, I beheld even till the beast was slain, and his body destroyed, and given to the burning flame.